Hey there, and welcome to the Confident Chemistry Teacher Podcast. I'm Kim, your go-to chemistry coach for engaging teaching strategies and simple solutions to the everyday challenges chemistry teachers face. Let's get this reaction started. Hey chemistry peeps, welcome back to another episode of the Confident Chemistry Teacher Podcast. Today, I'm going to be talking about how I recently made a freebie for you guys and how I used it in my class and how it really made my lab run a lot smoother. Plus, you'll get some insights into this lab that I did most recently. So first off, you guys, the freebie is called the Lab Day Starter Kit, and it's going to include 4 things in it. It has a Lab Day checklist. It has a Google Slides template in there. It has some Lab Station cards that have some jokes on them. And then it also has a Lab Station Signup Sheet. And I'm going to walk you through how I'm using each one of those to help make my lab days better. I recently ran one of my favorite simple labs, the cooling rate of hot water lab. It's a skill-focused labs, and it also gets kids graphing using thermometers, handling hot plates, transferring hot water, and then focusing on lab cleanup. So let me just walk you through how I organize my lab using these pieces of this Lab Day Starter Kit. To give you an idea about how this lab runs, it's pretty easy. We heat up some hot water. I put hot water at 2 different spots around the class. So I usually have one in the front and then in the back, like where I can see it. I model with the kids how to transfer the hot water into a beaker. The kids have 3 beakers. They have a small beaker, a medium beaker, and a larger beaker, and they're transferring the hot water into the medium beaker. I show them how to do that with crucible tongs and also with hot hands. Then the kids take the hot water back to their station. They're supposed to pour 40 milliliters into the small beaker, 40 milliliters into the big beaker. Then they go ahead, they take the initial temp. I also make sure to mention how the thermometer shouldn't stay inside the beaker and how it shouldn't be touching the sides of the beaker as well. So anyways, they record the initial temp, and then they just record the temperature every minute over the next 10 minutes. At the end, they calculate the cooling rate. I know that sounds like a pretty basic lab, but it's actually a really great one to start off the year with. So first off, the kids are still getting used to different lab equipment. We're using beakers, we're using beaker tongs, we're using the hot plates. So the idea here is that the kids are getting used to lab equipment. The second thing here is that kids are actually scared of transferring this hot water. And I don't know if scared is the right word, but they're not as confident as I'd like them to be. So this is a great time to practice this skill. And then finally, you guys, this is a great opportunity to discuss graphing and how you want graphing done. So that's kind of like the nuts and bolts of that lab. So they make these measurements, they record their measurements in a data table. Well, I guess I should have said it first. They write a hypothesis saying, do they think it's going to cool faster in the big beaker or the smaller beaker, and they have to give some reasoning. Then, like I said, we record our data. Then they're going to go ahead, write a short conclusion, and then we're also going to graph our data. So the first tool in the Lab Day Starter Kit is the Lab Day Checklist. Ideally, you're going to go ahead and look at this a week ahead of time. This will give you an idea to make sure that you have all the supplies that you needed. For this one, the lab sheet asked them to have 150 milliliter beakers, but I only had 100. So on the Lab Day checklist, I wrote myself a little note to remind the kids that they are going to have 100 milliliter beakers, not 150 milliliter beakers. Something small like that can totally trip up the kids. I switched schools recently, and so I had to scrounge up some goggles. I found some new ones, but I also found some dirty ones that needed to be cleaned. It also reminded me that I should set up the Google Slides template, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. This also gave me some time to think about how do I actually want this lab to be running? Is there any way that I could use timers to help the kids stay on task? And then it also allowed me to think about what are some teacher questions that I want to ask. Because I feel like I do this often. We'll finish up a lab, I'll look at their post-lab questions, and I'm like, dang, they clearly didn't know this about the lab, or man, I should have mentioned that during the lab. So by going through this Lab Day checklist, it helps me pick like the most important questions that I should be asking each group. So going through this lab day checklist really does help save brain power the day of the lab, because I know some days we're super crazy and we're like, man, we should have asked that question. Or man, I should have told the kids to do this instead of that. Or, man, now I know why the kids were confused, because we had a different piece of equipment than was written in the lab. The Google Slides template, it helps you organize your procedures. It helps your co-teachers and helps support students know exactly where we are. I also have a lot of students this year that have limited English, so I think having me say it and then them being able to read it on the board is really helpful for them. And then some of my students will actually use their phones to do some Google translation, so I can see them taking pictures of the slide and then they're translating it into their home language. The Google Slides template is actually also really helpful for students who are absent, so they can get an idea about what we are doing. And then I also put some information in there for the second day. What should your graph have looked like? Oh, here's an example graph. It's just a really great way to teach, to make sure that you haven't forgotten anything. Actually, the day we did this lab, we had a fire drill, so I wasn't able to do the lab on the day that I wanted to. But since I had the Google Slides show up, I went through the Google Slides and did a lot of the explaining that day. That way, the next day, I just had to give a much shorter, simpler explanation, and then the kids had more time to complete the lab. The third thing in the Lab Day Starter Kit are Lab Station laugh cards. Each card says like Station 1, Station 2, Station 3, you get the idea, and each one has a silly joke. I like to use these, they're like half sheets paper, so students know what lab station they're supposed to be at, and it also includes a little bit of humor. And I think I mentioned in the past, at first a lot of the kids don't know what the jokes are, but as the year goes on, they're like, Miss Semino, now I know why this joke is funny. I just love that. The fourth thing in this Lab Day Starter Kit is this Lab Station Signup Sheet. So at the beginning of the year, I'm pretty structured and I assign out the students' lab groups, but I actually used it for tracking this time. So first off, once the students make it to their lab station, I'll write down who is at each lab station. And then of course that'll help with accountability for cleaning up that lab station to make sure no equipment was broken, those kinds of things. But as I mentioned in my lab day checklist, I wrote down a few questions that I wanted to ask the students. So I also use it as a checklist to make sure, did I go around and ask each group this question? It's kind of keeping me on track, because you know, so many things can pop up during a lab day. Kids can have questions. I want to make sure that I am touching base with each lab group. So I know I just went over this Lab Day Starter Kit. I just want to let you guys know that this whole kit is totally free. So I'm going to put the link to sign up for it in the show notes. So please check that out. And if there's anything else that you think that I could make that would be helpful for the chemistry teacher community, let me know, because remember, that's what we're trying to do here, is I am trying to create a community where we can all make ourselves be better chemistry teachers so that we can have better lessons for our students, so we can have a more enjoyable time teaching. So as always, you guys, keep experimenting, keep inspiring, and keep being awesome in your classrooms. Happy teaching.